Long before the great empires of Rome or the magnificent pyramids of Egypt cast their shadows across the sands of time, there was a city of immense wealth and profound mystery. This was Ur of the Chaldeans, nestled in the fertile crescent of ancient Mesopotamia. If you were to walk its bustling streets thousands of years ago, you would feel the heat of the sun baking the mud brick walls and hear the rhythmic chanting of priests echoing from the towering ziggurats. It was a place of advanced mathematics, of scholars who mapped the heavens, and of merchants who traded precious stones and exotic spices. But it was also a place of spiritual darkness. The people of Ur worshipped the moon. They looked to the sky not to see the handiwork of a loving creator, but to bow before cold, silent, celestial bodies. In the heart of this thriving, idol-worshipping metropolis lived a man named Abram. He was not a young, restless adventurer looking to make a name for himself. Abram was a man in the autumn of his life. He had seen decades pass. He had built a life, a home, and a family under the roof of his father, Terah. By all earthly standards, it was time for Abram to settle into the quiet comfort of his later years, to rest in the familiar surroundings of the only world he had ever known. But the creator of the universe had a different plan. A plan that would require Abram to leave everything behind. History tells us through the ancient writings of historians like Flavius Josephus that Abram was a man of deep thought. He observed the stars and the seasons, the perfect order of the cosmos, and he realized that the moon and the sun could not be gods. They were bound by laws, moving in a precise dance dictated by a higher power. Abram understood that there was only one true God, a supreme architect who commanded the heavens and the earth. Because of this realization, he faced great opposition in Ur. The idol makers and the priests grew angry with his quiet rebellion. The atmosphere in his homeland became hostile. And then the voice of the Almighty broke through the silence of the ancient world. It was not a voice of thunder meant to terrify, but a voice of profound authority and intimate love. The Lord spoke to Abram, saying, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great." Imagine for a moment the sheer weight of those words. God was asking a 75-year-old man to pack up his tents, his flocks, and his family and walk into the absolute unknown. There was no map provided. There was no detailed itinerary. There was only a promise. In our own lives, how often do we crave certainty? We want to know the end of the journey before we take the first step. But faith, true faith, is stepping out into the darkness with nothing but the Word of God as your lantern. Abram did not argue. He did not ask for a few more years of comfort in Ur. He gathered his wife Sarai, a woman of great beauty but burdened by the sorrow of being childless. He gathered his nephew Lot and all the possessions they had acquired. Slowly, the great caravan moved out of the city gates. The dust rose beneath the hooves of their livestock as they turned their backs on the towering ziggurats of the Chaldeans. They walked along the mighty Euphrates River, traveling northwest toward Haran. The journey was anything but easy. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving. By day, the Mesopotamian sun beat down upon them, a relentless heat that tested their endurance. By night, the desert winds howled, and the cold seeped into their bones. Yet, in the quietness of those desert nights, far away from the noise and the idols of Ur, Abram found peace. As he sat by the crackling campfire, looking up at the vast, unpolluted canopy of stars, he felt the presence of the God who had called him. He was no longer a citizen of Ur. He was a pilgrim, a traveler, bound for a city whose builder and maker is God. Eventually, they arrived in the land of Canaan. It was a land occupied by other tribes, a land where Abram was a stranger. When he reached the plain of Moreh, the Lord appeared to him once more. This time, God pointed to the land and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." Abram stood on foreign soil, an old man without a single child, holding a promise that seemed completely impossible. But what did he do? He did not complain about his aching bones or the difficulty of the journey. He built an altar to the Lord. That altar was a testament of gratitude. It was a physical marker of a spiritual reality. Abram was saying, "Lord, I am here. I trust you. Even if I do not see the fulfillment of the promise in my own lifetime, I know that your word is true." There is a profound comfort in Abram's story for all of us, especially as we navigate the later chapters of our own lives. Society often tells us that our greatest contributions belong to our youth. The world suggests that once our hair turns grey and our steps slow down, our purpose is somehow diminished. But the God of Abram sees it entirely differently. God called an elderly man to become the father of faith. He used the twilight of Abram's life to set in motion the salvation of the world. Perhaps tonight you are facing an unknown path. Perhaps you have been called to leave behind a season of life that was comfortable and familiar, and you find yourself in an unfamiliar wilderness. You might be carrying the weight of unfulfilled promises or the sorrow of things lost along the way. Remember the courage of Abram. Remember that the same God who guided his caravan through the barren deserts is watching over you tonight. His promises are not limited by our age, our strength, or our circumstances. As you close your eyes and prepare to rest, picture that ancient starry night over the plains of Canaan. Feel the cool evening breeze that swept over Abram's altar. Breathe in the peace that comes from knowing you do not need to have all the answers. You only need to trust the one who holds the map. The God of the ancient days is still the God of your tomorrow. He is the ultimate shepherd, guiding you, protecting you, and loving you with an everlasting love. Let your heart be still. Let your worries fade into the quiet night and rest securely in the arms of the Creator.